Okay. Right.
I can't see you, Matt. Oh, there you are.
And then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shot. Very important at this time of year to give yourself a bit of a warm-up preparation. This is a good exercise for that. On the other side. Then you off your chest. Down to your head. And then finally your legs. Good. So sit back. Let your weight drop back into the chair. Almost as though you're sort of melting into the chair. Now, if you're in a hard chair, which you probably are, obviously, it's, if you sit in a soft chair, you just sort of drop into it, don't you? And the chair kind of wraps itself around you. When we do this in a harder chair, it's kind of the other way around. So it encourages this quality of softening through our body. Softening is it's difficult to find the right word. Softening, releasing, a kind of sense of molding. It's a bit more structured than just flopping, shall we say. But in the first instance, this idea of melting into the chair gives you this sense of your body releasing tightness, emptying of tension, stiffness. And so you can notice the effect that has on things like your breathing. You may notice other things, just become a little bit more aware, perhaps tingling. You might get a tingling in your fingers. That can be the peripheral circulation as you relax, and the blood just gets into the tips of your fingers, and so on and so forth. And it just shows that quite often we hold a lot of tightness, a lot of tension that actually blocks our normal physiological processes. And then bring your feet in, come into a more upright position. So this is a process of what we sometimes refer to in Tai Chi of emptying, releasing. It's one side of the process, really, because if you empty of something, then something will fill it. Now, some schools of Tai Chi will put all the emphasis on the emptying. They won't talk about the other side, but I quite like to draw people's attention to the other side, because the problem is that if all we think about is emptying, then as soon as we come upright, and if we're not aware of this stronger quality that can build within your body, you're likely just to stiffen up again. So that hollow, that void, has to be filled up. But what we look for is something that is different to the normal tightness, the normal stiffness that we don't always recognize. One leading Tai Chi teacher, master from the 1920s, described it as a different quality of strength. So we can feel the support from our feet and our hips. We can feel the density of our legs and buttocks and lower back. We can feel that column-like feeling, that denser feeling within the upper body. And we can feel the sense of connection that starts to build. And you're more likely to notice that as you begin to move. And these are all things that we can just gently become aware of that help us to avoid falling back into the habit of just sort of stiffening up. One of the phrases used in Tai Chi is that outside there should be the softness of cotton, inside the temper, the resistance of steel. This cotton is very soft, but also very resilient. Steel is a metal, it's hard, but in metallic terms, relatively soft. The image I sometimes offer to people is if you imagine you get a balloon, and if you stick your fingers in either side of the balloon, then to begin with, it's quite easy, but as you go further in, you meet more and more resistance. But the important thing is it's never stiff. It's not like poking your fingers into a wall or something like, or a brick or something like that. There's always a kind of soft quality. That's the sort of quality we want to fill up the space that's created, so that we retain that openness, that softness, but there's also a support there. And so we can get all the things, the benefits of the change to the breathing and the circulation and so on, without having to sort of lay back all the time. We can start to experience them in a more upright stance. And it can help us move as well. So just turning your head. Again, go very carefully. Colder weather, we're always just that little bit stiffer. Remember what I sometimes say to people that what we call the warm-up, the preparation, is really essential. And again, what I often point out is if you look out your window in the morning, that's not at the moment so much, but other times, see people rushing around, so they're dragging their kids to school and running for the bus and so on and so forth, carrying heavy bags, whatever. They're doing things that no self-respecting sports person would do on their field of sport without a good warm-up, without preparing the body to get the blood flowing, raise your body temperature, soften your muscles up, and so on and so forth. And yet, we start our day without doing that. So getting used to doing a little routine first thing in the morning before you really start your day can be really important. And then the shoulders. I think that's true at any time of the year, but I think at this time of the year where even walking outside and putting something in the bin could lead to a bit of a slip or something like that. It's very, very easy to pull a muscle, strain yourself. Going forwards. So this opening routine is actually quite useful. It's simple to remember. It doesn't take long to do. And it just gently goes through every part of your body, warming it up and linking up those different parts of the body. And then your hands to your sides. Because in Tai Chi terms, the warm-up is not just a physical thing. It's about the mind integrating with your body as well. So your hands winding around. Elbows out just a little bit. Be aware of the space underneath the shoulder in the armpit. Imagine you're holding a little kind of ball there, like a golf ball. Just a little bit of space there. And then winding around. So you're winding up silk thread. And go back the other way. Easing forwards and so one of the things that helps us to maintain that sense of emptying and hence allows the filling, development of that internal strength, is to move correctly. And that's one of the most important things that we look for in Tai Chi, is to be upright but not stiff. And to achieve that, we have to make good use of our legs and our feet and our hips. And the legs are pushing you back, the hips are dropping down and pulling you back. And you can just feel the connection, the link between your hips and your shoulders. So coming to the upright position shouldn't be a strain. What can happen very easily, and you can check for yourself with this. If I do this from the side, what we often find ourselves doing is this. If you watch my head, when I start coming back, I start with my head, and you can see what I'm doing. You can see I'm sort of straining in my back now. What I want to do is I'll raise my heels, is to push myself back, because I'm going to push myself right back. I'm not going to go too far because I fall out of the chair. Push back, like you're in a rocking chair. That's quite a subtle quality in the chair. And if you can begin to feel how that works in the chair, and it took me quite a while when I started developing these movements to really feel how the legs were working. But if you can develop that, then when you come to standing, your awareness of what's happening in your legs and your feet and their significance, and indeed the hips, will already be there. They're a valuable exercise, and one that works the whole body very, very gently. You can feel the filling and the emptying in your legs. Just a sense of your spine floating forwards and backwards. And then you turn in the center of your body. And forwards and backwards, but to one side. So you're using this leg that you're moving towards more than the other leg. But then balance the body up, you switch. Going around. And back the other way. And back to the center. Pull one knee up. Now, as you do this, obviously, you're going to start losing some of the support here. So think about your posture as you raise the heel. What what needs to happen. This is exaggerated, but I raise the heel and I need to sort of shift across slightly just to change so that I'm a little bit more on this opposite side. Otherwise, I'm just going to fall over. Now again, that's quite a subtle movement. And if you can begin to recognize that that's going on, just going to the step in now. If you can begin to recognize that's going on, we actually do the same movements when we're standing. These are very, very subtle, small movements made in your body that your body mostly does automatically. But remember, these are also the functions that get very easily lost as we get older or through inactivity, not just an age-related thing. Down, and then, so if you did this little routine, and we've gone through this quite slowly, and it's still only taken 15 minutes, you could do it in probably less than 10 minutes. You're actually preparing also your body in all sorts of ways, both sort of short-term and long-term effects. And then just sit. And of course, as always, there's the element of the mind as well, and just taking that time. It's very easy to get up and it's like, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. We kind of lose that sense of space that is so important. Now, hands down to your sides and forwards and backwards. Now change into fisherman castanet. And then circling the ball, rolling the ball in towards you. So what we're doing now, raising the hands, is another movement that may well cause us to stiffen up. But we want to keep that same quality of softness in our arms and our shoulders. And so again, we're encouraged to use our legs, use our hips, to feel the connection from hips, almost like a set of pulley cords, as I've described before, going up to your shoulders, but then down to your fingers. And that combined with this image of rolling the ball helps us to create the movement. Now, if you're doing this correctly, you'll start to notice something in the front of the body, like a kind of, there's all sorts of ways you can experience it. I feel it as a sort of wave coming up. You might feel it's a bit of a tingling coming up, which shows that far from your arms being isolated, I mean, there's certainly the connection to the shoulders and down your back into your hips, but also there's a movement, an impetus coming up the front of your body, an energy, if you like to think of it like that, and that helps to move your arms. Now, pigeon spreads its wings. However, if you're straining in your shoulders and back, your arms, because this exercise too, your arms are up, they're being the same kind of dynamic going on in the front of the body and indeed the back. If you're simply straining in your shoulders to keep your arms in position and to move them, that will override those more subtle movements. And this is one of the reasons why there's always the emphasis in Tai Chi on the emptying stage, to not fall back into the old habits of straining to move. And pushing away. So it becomes interesting at this point, because as soon as we're given the idea of pushing, we want to shove with our arms. But try and keep that softer, balloon-like quality. If you were being pushed like this, it feels more like you're standing in the sea being lifted up by a wave than that somebody's pushing you. Trust me on this, I've had it happen to me. I've been literally lifted off my feet, almost without sort of feeling it, and certainly not feeling that I've been kind of hit or anything like that. One more time. And then a little bit more focused, directed through the fists. Good, and then back to pigeon spreads its wings, and just a sequence of 3. Pigeon spreads its wings, pushing away, punch with both fists. Reset one more time. Sending your hands out. one of the principal ways that we cultivate that inner strength is through the correct use of our minds, through appropriate images like moving through water. So again, we see how crucial that mind training aspect is, because it's no good sort of thinking of moving through water and then thinking, oh yeah, I had a lovely day at the beach a couple of years ago and we had fish and chips and that was nice. And, you know, the sun was really hot, you know, because you've lost the image. You've got to train your attention to retain the image for the body to work with. Now, bringing your hands in, rooting down. And then wild goose. And parting the clouds. And then hands dropping down, dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Always trickier to find those connections when you're seated, I think. You can feel the legs more easily when we're standing. And of course, it's even more difficult with these vertical movements. So again, these are quite challenging movements to do well, to keep to the Tai Chi principles. One more on each side. and change. And this time, add in the turn. One more round. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. Another one where we may find ourselves stiffening up as we come back to the upright position and as our arms go up. So pay attention. If your thoughts have drifted off, which is quite common, of course, gently bring them back. Try and keep that feeling that you're able to draw your attention back into your body at times. So that too becomes part of our regular habit. And then change into grasping the tiger's ears. That same winding movement that we did earlier. A little bit of a push up from the hips and the intent for your arms to go up. And it's quite a sort of natural pattern of movement for the arms. It's got sometimes seems to follow the shape of the shoulder joint quite nicely. So unless you're busy contriving movements, you're making things up, you're adding movements, or even if you're just thinking it's something different to what it is, then the movement just seems to happen of its own accord. Oh, that's not quite true, is it? Because we know if you change the other side, And we've done a lot of work to get to that point. And really, all the movements in Tai Chi should do that. They're all natural movements for the body. Quite often what gets in the way is the physical tension, so on and so forth. But equally often what gets in the way is some kind of disruption in our attention, or a lack of attention. And then grasping the tiger's ears. One more time. Feet back in. Yeah, archer. So, hands folded across your chest, drawing the bow, and your head can turn slightly, and then releasing it out. Sides. One more on each side. We're going to change to the exercise stirring the beans. So bring your hands back, drop down, turn, and forward slightly, swinging your arm around, and then back the other way. Hands just slightly above the level of your hips. Last time. And then back and rest. And give yourself a few moments just to contemplate this inner feeling that you're going to try and maintain when we come into the standing. Okay, and then once again, rubbing your hands together. tapping over your face, over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. The other side. Upper part of your chest. Your belly. And your legs. Okay, understand it. So the occasion that I was talking about, and it's a good illustration of the nature of this internal strength. That when one particular time I was at a Tai Chi event, and the teacher of a particular session was demonstrating on me, and he got me to stand just like this, and he put his hands as though he was pushing a wave, and he stood there for a while and he was sort of feeling his way into it, and then I felt this push. It was a bit like if you get a very mild swell in the sea. It wasn't even like a big wave. It was just this, and I felt myself going backwards, and I thought, well, that was interesting because that was very, very soft. And as I stepped backwards, I realised that my other foot had come off the ground, and I was flying through the air back into the wall behind me, which was a partition wall. There was another session going on the other side, and I fell back into the wall. People on the other side of the wall saw the wall buckle in because it was, it was one of these sliding doors with hinges, and they said they thought I was coming through the wall. And the interesting thing about that, in some ways, is that the guy who was doing it was a little bit taller than me, but nowhere near my sort of size. He was a good 15, 20 years older. And at that point in time, he was having trouble with the hip. So he was walking around on a walking stick. And I'm 14 stone, and I went flying through the air. So there's something going on here, which is very interesting, I think, in terms of Tai Chi. I'm not suggesting you try that on people, but the implication of that for our well-being is really important. It means that when we walk around, and this time of year, we were saying very slippery, you might fall over. You're a bit like that, aren't you? When you're moving around, we don't need to do that. It's not necessary. There is this different quality of strength that's available to us. So, as you start to get glimpses of that, it becomes more regular for you, I suppose you could say. I'll come forward a bit. And it's totally dependent on getting the basics right, your basic posture, the awareness of where your weight is in your feet, the alignment of your body, your hips dropping back, and an awareness of all of this that you carry with you. So now sinking down and pushing up. So we have to be able to empty of the existing tightness and stiffness in the body to allow this more internal strength to build and to develop. Like if you've got a bowl of dirty water, you want clean water in the bowl, you have to empty the bowl out first. And in particular with an exercise like this, that point at which you're sinking down here, that kind of draining away. You can almost imagine the tightness draining away through your body. And as you fill up with this sort of more vibrant energy. It's not just a kind of physical strength, but a sense of, as I say, vibrant energy, a rejuvenation. They're two ways of looking at the same process. And then the wild goose. If you like to work with your breathing, and you can do this just a couple of times. Breathe in as you push your arms up and out. Your body expands, and just notice that the in-breath is very sharp and clear compared to the out-breath. That's an example of the same process, that you're breathing out the stagnant energy, the stagnant breath, full of carbon dioxide. What you're breathing in is much clearer, much fresher. One more time. And then pass in the clouds. Once more. And shake out. An image I like for that thing with the breath, the warm outgoing breath, the fresher incoming breath, that one of spring mist, autumn rain, which I probably mentioned to you before, or autumn fog rather, that the in-breath has that vibrancy of the spring mist, whereas the out-breath is like the kind of like dreary old fog in November. Now, 1 foot forwards, transferring forwards and backwards. So when we were doing the weight changing and the stepping in the chair, I mentioned that slight shift as you started to move your foot. And we do that with an awareness of alignment and with a sense of arriving somewhere that we're familiar with eventually. Again, this is where the practice and practicing with awareness is very important. At the moment, we're just going to 60% in the front leg, 70% in the back. But there is still that same sense of you've arrived at this point. But now, I'll show you from the side. When I go back up, I get to about here. Now, as I raise my front toes, I'll exaggerate this. You shouldn't move this way. But as I raise my front toes, I sort of drop back a little bit more. And then when I go forwards and my back heel comes up again, I kind of drop in. As I say, that was really exaggerated. So you shouldn't do it that much. It's something that you feel. Because raising your toes or your heels kind of allows for that little bit of extra movement, brings you more obviously above the supporting leg. So it's very important that when we do this, we don't start to angle the body to fall back into those old habits, because that will make that adjustment quite difficult. And then you're stepping in and out. Remember, these are all movements that your body would want to make just an ordinary walk-in. Of course, in ordinary walking, you might well be angled slightly and so on and so forth. But that sense of coming into place and so on and so forth will build. You'll find after a while that you don't have to be a slave to that upright position. Once you've had the upright position and worked with that effectively to develop these very subtle movements and changes. And then just shake out. So there are exercises that I do that once you've got into this position here, now that I'm here, I can do this. And I can stay relatively stable. If I don't go there, if I just do this, I fall over. So it's like, even if you do lean a little bit to go forwards, it's like you've got to sort of drop down and then lean. Otherwise, you'll just get carried over. So keep that upright position. Try that on the other side. And then raising your toes and your heel. And stepping in. And then either forwards or backwards, depending on where your space is. Take a few steps. And then going back. And then fisherman cast again. Good. And then on the other side. Okay. Find your chair again. So that image that I used, just spring mist, autumn fog, is a good example of how when we've managed to train our awareness, train our minds, we can begin to make real use of the mind and bring about physical changes in the body. As always, our body naturally responds to images. If I were to show you an image of a plate of nice food or something like that, your tummy will start to rumble, you'll start to salivate, and so on and so forth. So the spring mist or autumn fog is a really good way to help just kind of refresh yourself. And sometimes when I do it as a visualization, you can imagine, you have to imagine almost that you can breathe into your leg and so on and so forth, but just gradually build it up so that you feel as though your whole body begins to fill up with that tingle of the spring mist, if that's a useful image to you. And that sort of slightly what we would call stagnant quality of the autumn fog, the out breath and the sleepiness of the carbon dioxide and so on and so forth, is leaving your body. And again, it's a good example of this interrelationship of both emptying and filling. We can feel it in physical terms, we can see it in terms of the visualization. So for me, I don't use a lot of visualization, but the spring mist autumn fog I think is a good one, and you can combine it quite easily with the exercises if it suits you to do that, or just try it on your own. I find it's good for those times when I'm feeling a bit kind of like dreary and thick-headed, and it's not even evening; it's still the start of the day, and I've got to kind of get myself going. So it's just a little kind of offshoot really from the practice. Now, just letting yourself settle, let your hands drop down and embrace tiger, return to mountain. You can even feel that sense of emptying and filling here. But rather than just having a sense that you're emptying of that stagnant energy, it could also be the emptying of the sort of expansion, that the emptying feeling is also associated with that sense of your root settling into the ground as well. So there's various ways you can play with these ideas. One more round. And rest. Lovely. Thank you as always, everybody. So try some of those ideas out.
Bye, everybody.
Take care in the
Thank you,
weather
Bye.
as well.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.